Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. AirborneErnesto here with another video of a new title called Lords and Villeins. This game released, I don't know, maybe like a month ago, and I saw it on my suggested list and I was like, well, gotta pick that up. So I thought I'd give a little bit of gameplay and maybe a brief intro slash tutorial to the game because it is a little confusing at first and the tutorial takes a long time, so I figured I would let you guys take a look at the game. First we're going to go ahead and load my main save game so that you can see kind of where you can be. So here's kind of a mid-game situation or scenario for the game. This game is a management style, almost like a Dwarf Fortress or perhaps a RimWorld style game, management game, colony sim. So you start with a main family and then you build on from there as you get new citizens. And each of them have a certain job that they're good at. For example, this household are woodcutters or foragers. So I've assigned them a forest that they can work in. And we'll get into some of the other things here when we start a new game so that you guys can take a look at it yourself. But this just kind of shows you what's possible in the game. By no means am I that far in the game, but this does take some time to kind of set up and get ready. So let's go ahead and start over on a new game so that you guys can see a little bit of how to get started. Alright, so when you want to start a new game, go ahead and just hit new game. You get a few terrains to choose from. I think the last one that I did was seaside, so maybe we'll do something a little different. Perhaps we can do fields, just because that's the first one. Here you can make your first ruler. This is in a way your character, however it is a colony management game, so similar to RimWorld and stuff like that. It's not like you're going to be playing that character, for example. So you can add a title, you can do Lady or Lord, or you can do something a little different. If you're into the Viking styles of things, you can put the equivalent of king, or in this case we will do Jarl because you actually work for a king in your colony. So go ahead and give your character a name. What should we go with here? Let's do Halfdan. That's in accordance with Viking Scandinavian names. And a surname. We need a family name. Okay, well, staying true to the Viking way, let's just do a basic one and do Bjornsson. Alright, here you can do a couple of things, modifications to your main character. So you can choose between male and female body type, which really doesn't do much. Besides remove the beard option, you can do old age or young age. And you can cycle through some of this stuff and decide what you like. There we go. And then you can choose which gender they are interested in. This kind of allows, so normally you're going to want to start with a partner because it's a little difficult if you don't. You'll just be by yourself. You can choose how many children you have as well. I usually go for a more difficult start, so I might just start with like 1 child or 0 children. But for the sake of the video, so that you can see how this works, we'll go ahead and start with 1. And hit confirm. It'll load your map, and we'll get started. Alright, so this is the splash screen at the beginning of a new game. Essentially, this is the message from the king. I've bestowed upon you the right to rule over this land, etc. Essentially, once every year, at the beginning of the season, you're going to get a quest, in a way, of materials and other items that you'll have to send to the king to be continuing good standing with him, for example. And in return, you can kind of pick and choose which families or specializations that you are looking to get for your village. Otherwise, they just come naturally. So you really don't have to use that feature. In my use case, I have not actually used any of the Favor of the King yet in my playthroughs. Alright, when you first start, you really don't have anything on the map. This is, what was it, the valley or fields or something like that? So, first things first, wood is going to be a main priority in this game just because That's what I'm going to build all of my buildings with. You can choose to do other things through straw and dirt and water and stuff like that. However, I think wood is probably the quickest and easiest way to build in the game. So let's go ahead and pause with space. Here's some of the items that you can see in the menu. It looks like we have spring, summer, fall, winter seasons, and I think there's 3 cycles or 4 cycles per season. Maybe in the future we'll be able to change that. You have your materials over on your left hand side. A building menu for walls, floors, roofs, furniture, production, which is items that go in specific zones. So you really won't need to use the production menu that often, because it's going to suggest items to put in the zones that you place. So same thing with storage. You really can't use any of them unless they're in a zone. So your main tool is actually going to be your zones menu here. Outside of that, I don't really use a whole lot besides walls and floors and roofs. You have a tutorial option here if you want to go through that. I've played enough to where I kind of have gotten used to the game mechanics, and it's not a big deal for me. And over here is the user, or I guess villager book. So this is your main family. It shows all the families that you currently start with. To my knowledge, you always start with a family of farmers and a family of foragers. And you can see some of their stuff that they have equipped right here and what they're good at as well as their mood. If they have children, you'll see that it's kind of like a family tree setup where you'll have multiple individuals, going down the line. So, and then the book for warehouse. This is where you're going to be doing a lot of usage here in this menu as well. This is how you grant villagers items. You can seize items from families, or you can put items on the market in your warehouse for villagers to purchase here. We'll get more into that in a little bit. And then you just have main menu, zone visibility, which you can actually just hold down tab and it'll show you zones. And then lastly, the type of roof level that you want to be shown on the game so that you can see through walls, similar to other colony games that you may have played. So with the game pause, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a zone, and we are going to assign a forest. This is going to be for our woodcutters that are going to get wood, essentially, and use that as building materials for the rest of the village. This is step 1 for me. It's up to you on how you want to start, but I would suggest probably going the route that I'm about to go. So I'm going to go ahead and zone out, kind of get a feel for where you want your villagers to live and stuff like that. So I think that this is probably a good location. You can hold down shift while making a zone and then use your mouse wheel to make that zone larger. Or you can manually go through and do that as well. So I am going to manually assign a zone, and then I'm going to make it come off a little bit. You'll find that there's kind of reasons I do the things I do. So I'm going to make a little bit of area that's not in the forest as well. I'm going to use that for storage, and then feeding troughs, because each zone has different types of animals that it can support as well. So in this case, foresters can actually support pigs. So we're going to make use of that. So once you back out of the zones menu, you can click on the item, or on the zone, and place items in here. So let's go ahead and put a sawhorse, because we're going to need that to make planks. Get a couple of those in there. And then a feeder. This is going to be for my pigs. I suggest getting a couple of ground storage slots, because your villagers are going to use a lot of these, especially for the wooded area. You don't necessarily need a chest in this area. Also keep in mind, when you assign a house to the family, if they don't have the storage area in either their house or the forestry zone, they will put their items that they get from the forest in either the house or the zone that they're working in. To my knowledge, I've noticed that like if these get overcrowded with wood, they'll start taking it inside their house. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. A knackery, that's if the animal dies or something like that, they'll place the corpse here. Eventually we'll get a butcher, so I'm not going to place this right now because it's kind of pointless. And lastly, trees. You may have noticed I didn't highlight the entirety of the forest, and that's because you can actually plant trees. And it really doesn't matter. Honestly, I've noticed that I was doing this before where I would plant a bunch of trees, and then once they cut them down, I would remove the stumps and then go back and plant them manually. But then I tested the theory that maybe they do it by themselves, and that is the case. They do that by themselves. So I just do the initial planting, and then I don't do anything after that. So once you've had your zone kind of created the way that you'd like it to, go ahead and click on it, and you can go into your assign family option up here. And obviously we're going to want to give this to the foragers slash, lumberjacks, I guess, for lack of a better term. And then you get to decide how you are feeing or how you are taxing that family to use that area of land that you've assigned to them. Because keep in mind, all of this is your land. So the first option here essentially makes it so that the first option here makes it so that 10% of the resources that are produced are taxed each season. So essentially, at the end of each season, 10% of all product that they make in this area is going to be given to your king's warehouse, or your Jarl, your main character's warehouse that you build. Now, this is okay. However, you're going to run into situations where, that might not be a good balance for you. And honestly, in my experience, I have started by picking one of these options, for example, and then switching over later on when I feel like it's become imbalanced. So fee farm essentially is every day this family will pay a certain fee per season to use this land. Okay, so right now it would be 0.01 gold per season. Stewardry is where we pay them, but in return they give 100% of their production to the Jarl, or our main character. And lastly, this option allows, essentially, there's nothing. There's no payment. There's no receiving payment. They're just exempt from everything. So for the beginning of this game, I would suggest either doing the first option or the second option. And I'm just going to start it off really cheap in the beginning, and then once we start getting some production going, I'm going to kind of modify all of these zones that I'm about to place to make it so that we have a pretty good amount of gold coming in and a pretty good amount of gold going out as well. So once you've made your decision, go ahead and click the checkbox. And now that family will come over and start essentially creating their forested area. But it's not going to do them much good if they don't have a house assigned to them. So let's go ahead and do that as well. I will pause the game and go to zones, and we're going to do a household. And here we are going to make a plot of land dedicated to this family's house, essentially. I'm going to go all the way up to the sidewalk here, and the reason for this is anything that I build inside of here is going to be their land. So if I place ground storages outside and stuff like that, it'd be a good idea to have a bigger plot of land. So once this is set up, I'm going to head over to walls, and I think we decided we were going to do a wooden wall. Now this is going to be easy for them to build because they are the wood production, so it should be pretty simple if we make a wooden house. They're just going to use their own products to build this house. So let's do that now. And that's going to be everything for, obviously, the shell of the home. Now we can click on this zone and start building things inside of here. Now, here's one thing where you might use the menu that I was talking about earlier. I don't want to use straw beds because straw is kind of hard to get. Maybe not for some people, but it is for me. So I'm going to go over to furniture, and I'm going to choose the beds from here, which only require wood and planks, which they can produce, so it's not going to be an issue. So go ahead and place your items however you see fit in here, and then we'll cut back after I'm done here in a second. Alright, so I would suggest placing everything that you have available in here. The cauldron is going to allow them to use water and firewood to get cooked water or boiled water, and then that's used in your cooking table. So I would suggest doing all of that. The well obviously gives them access to water. Shelves is for food storage. Wooden block is to cut wood into firewood, which they'll need for the winter months. Barrel is for fruits and vegetables and fish and stuff like that. Ground storage, like I said earlier, place it outside, but if they run out, they'll use the assigned lots that they have available to them. And the chest is essentially for crafting items and then your gold and silver. And having a place to eat is obviously a nice deal to have too. So go ahead and let them build that. I'm going to fast forward just so you can kind of see what's going on here. And they're going to do a lot of planting probably first before they do anything. Oh, and they actually won't do anything until you assign the house. So that would explain it. We're going to go down to the foragers because this is going to be their house. Same thing, you can choose between them paying you or they can get exemption from that fee. I'm going to go ahead and do fee farm for now just because it's not that important what we decide right now. Alright, so now they own this property. We have one more family to take care of, and keep in mind at the beginning, none of them are going to have food. They have no resources right now because they don't have a home and they don't have land, I guess in the case of these farmers. So they actually will be starving here shortly. So we start with 400 normal meals and I think 200 excellent meals. So let's go ahead and lay the foundation for the other family to have a lot, and then we will grant them for free some of those normal meals so that they can at least get up and started. So in this case, I'm going to go to my zones menu and I'm going to do farmland, and we're going to make some farmland over here. So it really doesn't matter where in this case because it looks like we have all green land here. So I'm just going to make some pretty large farmland locations, and maybe I will do it out here off to the side in the map so that they have a little more room. Actually, we can go ahead and start with the household just so that we know where they're going to be living first. And that's about right. We don't need anything too crazy big. So I'm going to go over to my walls menu. We're going to choose wooden wall once again and create a household. Couple of doors. I always do a back door because if they work outside the back of their house, they don't have to walk all the way around. So you'll see me doing that a lot as well. Go ahead and do a wooden fence.